One of the things that I just want to reflect on for just a moment is, listening to this conversation and being a part of this conversation for the last little while just reminds me how unreasonable it seems that you've got folks, even well-meaning folks who are elected officials making laws about medical procedures and pharmacological properties and toxicity, and all these medical issues are not what most of us were trained in. And, the idea that we have marijuana as a Schedule I drug right up there with, some of the most addictive, most harmful substances it's just a mistake. And it's just a product of having the wrong people at the table making the decisions. Well, one of the things that would, I think, advance our state a good measure would be if as the legislature, we found a panel of medical experts, people who really knew about drug interactions with the human body, locked them in a room for, a weekend or 6 months, and had them reschedule all of the drugs on our schedule, because, stuff gets added there over the years, and it gets added rather willy-nilly, quite frankly, and it's just taken on a lot of weight, and we need to get in there and make it make sense again.
I agree. Representative Irwin, you do know you're a hero with our community, don't you?
No, I don't know that, but
yes, you are.
Well, it's nice of you to say that, but I really appreciate the work that you folks are doing, because there's a couple of things that are going to be real important in the next little while. One of them is going to be, as we look at these bills, what determination gets made internally, the legal determination, about whether or not these bills, quote unquote, amend the act. Because when we have an opportunity to trigger that supermajority provision, then we have an opportunity to, I think, be successful in protecting safe access for patients in Michigan. And so that's going to be a critical issue going forward. And then the other one is going to be if folks such as yourselves are successful in creating an atmosphere amongst the legislators that public sentiment is really behind a fair application of the Medical Marijuana Act. We all as legislators need to be reminded how big of a majority passed this legislation and how much public support is out there for safe and legal access to this medicine. So, you folks are doing a lot to help with that, and I appreciate it, because if that message gets out amongst my colleagues, it's an election year, and we may not be medical professionals, but we are, political professionals, and we all realize that we serve at the pleasure of the people.
Very well said. Thank you very
sir.
much. Do you one last question? Do you think we respond to the, in the community's approach, do we respond by addressing the bills individually and why they're not going to work and how they're going to damage, the whatever protections are left, or, do we showcase the tragedies that have happened and how patients aren't getting their medicine, or a combination, or what would you suggest?
Yeah, it's probably a combination, and I think you concoct that brew based on what the specific pieces of legislation are. I mean, usually, what will happen is, and I'm just talking about in the committee. Usually, what will happen is, a specific bill will come up, and they'll come up one at a time, and if we're debating an issue that's relative to, access to jury trial and justice, for instance, that would engender a different type of message than if we're talking about, one of these other issues, about, safe and locked facility, for instance, So, it really depends on the specific piece of legislation. But out in the public, I think what's most important is to, tell the stories of the people who've been helped by it. As much as some of the negative stories about the folks who've been treated poorly because of a misinterpretation of the law by law enforcement, as much as those are powerful, I personally think that the positive stories are the more powerful stories. I usually try to gravitate towards a message that focuses on how we can be better as a state, better as a society, and here's how we get there, rather than a message that is more focused on all the problems and how we need to fix them. I guess I feel like you catch more flies with honey, even though I know that, in fact, you do catch more flies with vinegar.
Mm-hmm. See, I didn't know that. Now I know.
Yeah.
I now know.
Yeah, if you're trying to catch flies, vinegar actually does work better, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it's naivete or just the way I choose to live my life, I try to really focus on the positive aspects of it, and I think, at least in the long run, I think that's what moves people, despite the short-run effectiveness of fear and, obfuscation.
Very well said.
Fear and
good advice.
So, one thing I wasn't sure on, so the actual hearings will not start next week. Is that what I understand? They'll probably be 2 weeks down the road?
That's my understanding. Once again, this is all at the pleasure of Representative Walsh. I expect that he is going to, be very forthright and fair, as he has been, the whole time I've known him for the last year. So, he's indicated that this stuff is going to come up on a certain schedule, and I think that you would be reasonable to believe that that's going to be how it plays out.
Okay. Well, listen, you've been also most gracious with your time. I really appreciate you coming on and really making it a special show. We had 2 state representatives on. This is a real special night for us. Appreciate it. Thank you for being part of it.
Thank you,
absolutely, sir. And keep it up, and hopefully we'll be having an opportunity to chat when you come up to Lansing. But I'm probably not the person you should be spending your time with. We have a lot of folks, in Southeast Michigan who represent different parts of Southeast Michigan on the Judiciary Committee. I would encourage you to not wait until the committee hearing to start calling those folks and asking to meet with them and asking to share information with them, because, as you saw with Representative Cavanagh, for instance, there's an opportunity for education. There's an opportunity for people to see how this really plays out in people's lives. And if they don't hear about that until they get to the committee table, their mind's already going to be made up. They're already going to be having probably made commitments about where they're going to vote on each particular piece of legislation. So, find out who's on the Judiciary Committee. Make sure you sit down with them. Give them your best information. Give them an opportunity to talk to patients and real people who have found help through this. And I think that's what's going to move those folks. And if we get them moving before they even get into that committee room, and then you pack that committee room, holy cow, you've sent a strong message to the legislature.
Excellent advice.
Wise advice from a wise man. We appreciate it. And let me just reiterate, you've been a hero for our community. We appreciate all the advice and counsel, and we're going to take it to task and use it wisely. Thank you very much for your time,
Great.
sir.
Yeah, thank you for yours. One more thing. I have to interject this. I heard you talking earlier about, with Representative Cavanagh about, okay, there are some ideas that we'd like to throw into the mix, and how exactly does that happen? And, I think but I'm just going to kind of go back to that for a second. There is an opportunity to amend these bills as they're going through. And, I think that it seems to me that you've, built some positive relationships with some of the folks around the table, and you might be able to get some folks to offer some amendments to some of these bills as they go through. I mean, I've often considered, how do we sculpt an amendment that would, solve this issue of people who are trying to do everything to obey the Medical Marijuana Act, and they get thrown in jail. How can we stop that from happening? Because you can't imagine that any of the legislators sitting up there would want someone who's a bona fide patient who might have misfilled out their paperwork to end up in prison. That's an absurd result, and it's also a very costly and unjust result. So,
people are still being arrested because of that.
Well, maybe there's a way to put a piece in there, put a piece of language into one of these bills that would, give people some additional protection. I heard the mention about maybe jury instructions, or, all of these different ideas. Together we need to be ready to work on them and get them to a form where they can be stuck into the bills and be effective for citizens down the line. And it's hard to do that not having the final bill drafts in your hands. But you can look at the bills that have been introduced and try to find some ideas about to put this language in here that might help us with this problem, and then bring that specific language to some of your legislators and talk about a strategy to work it into the bill, because there's going to be some amendments going up on the board. I know I'm going to put some ideas.
Criminal penalties to officers that violate our Michigan medical marijuana rights?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Could we ascribe criminal penalties to officers that violate our medical marijuana rights? We need protections. We need some teeth.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think that if you're trying to solve that, provide that protection by providing penalties for law enforcement officers, I don't think you're going to get very far. I think it would be more logical and more politically logical to attack it from the other angle and just provide protection for the patients and call that protection out in a very specific way, that if they do end up, unfortunately, in court, they have an additional piece of law to stand behind them.
All right.
Something, yeah.
And reinforce the right to jury trial, maybe.
That's the answer. I'm telling you, if that happens, I don't want any of these bills to pass, but if they came over in any manner, no matter how ridiculous they are, at least let, the quote-unquote, the people that enacted this law be the judges of whether or not someone not filling up their paperwork is going to lead to someone getting convicted of a felony. You know what I mean? And you said it.
No, absolutely.
And that may be it. Because I believe, I've said before, as a trial attorney, even pre-medical marijuana, it was difficult to impanel a jury to sit in a marijuana case, because you always have some people that would say that I would never convict, anyone for marijuana. I think it should be legal. That was pre. So now we've got 63-70% of those people that are on a panel. And it's just it's very.
If they knew they were dealing with a card holder, they would never convict.
Right. That's the thing, and the fact that it's not is, and that's you understand we would be at a different place if it had been more fairly litigated. But I've digressed.
Well, that's why we need to work on all these little details and try to improve whatever gets moving as much as we can, and work on behalf of the citizens to get the best possible result. And keep at it and rinse and repeat, every year, particularly every 2 years in November.
Very good. Thank you so much for your time again.
All right. Good night, everybody.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That was, of course, Representative Jeff Irwin, first-term state representative for the 53rd District out of Ann Arbor. Fantastic, man. We're going to take a quick break. Everyone, stay with us. I see a lot of callers. We've got about 18 minutes left, and we're going to come back and take a couple calls and then wrap it up. We're going to be right back. Call number is 1-347-326-9626. We've just been listening for like an hour of jam-packed legislative analysis with Representative Irwin and Representative Cavanagh, and it's just been a really great legislative experience for all who are listening. And we're going to take a quick break and be right back.